Hi, this is Rob Sheen with the Source Conference, and I'm here with Anurag Dwivedy, who was a graduate student at Northeastern, specializing in information assurance and cybersecurity, and he is now a AppSec engineer at Cisco. So he's going to be speaking at the Source Boston event coming up on May 9th and 10th, and his talk is on dissecting malware. So it sounds like a really interesting topic. So tell us a little bit about your talk, Anurag.
Okay, thanks, Rob. First, thanks for having me at the Source Conference again. And the talk is more about the real world malwares. This whole talk, that the inspiration came from my internship at NBC, where I got a full time exposure to the malwares which were delivered to the organization. So the talk is more about setting up your own lab and trying to get the real time malwares onto the system into a sandbox and trying to see how it works, like how the malware is trying to interact with your system, with your register keys and every other aspects of the computer, and how you can actually dissect the malware and see how it is working. This would help any of our information security person to actually know how it's working, and getting those ideas and incorporating them into the development life cycle or somewhere to see how to stop those malwares to work is something I am targeting in this talk.
Cool. So how is it you can take identify, but also get these malware out of your real-time environment and get it into a safe environment? What kind of things do you do there?
Okay, so the approach I would follow would be most of the malwares, as you would see the data statistics everywhere, the most of the malwares are delivered using email. So mostly we will transfer that email into a sandbox environment and we'll try to download that whole. I will just like to give an example. Suppose you get an email saying, here, your iCloud account is full. Click here to upgrade. And mostly that clickable link will download an exe and that will do the notorious activity in your computer. Mm-hmm. So we'll have that mail into a sandbox environment, try to click it, download it, and we'll have our tools ready in the sandbox to capture the events which that downloadable exe will do. So this is how I'm trying to get hold of the malware.
Got it. And once you have it, what's the process for analyzing it?
Okay, so the process mainly broadly consists of two things, static and dynamic. Static is just getting the malware, trying to reverse engineering it and see how it is coded and what it's trying to do. This is a little cumbersome and difficult to get hold of because most of the code is obfuscated. The second and the interesting part is the dynamic analysis, which is you just download, have your tools on the sandbox ready, and just look at what it's trying to do. For example, if a malware is trying to communicate to an IP address back to a malicious IP address, you just have a network process monitor or a Wireshark. We don't use Wireshark much because Wireshark is something which already malwares detect that there's a Wireshark running, so they will just subside and sit down. So we'll have a network process monitor which will capture the packets, and then they will drill down the packets and see which IP address was trying to communicate and what data it's trying to send. So this is a very small example of how a dynamic analysis starts. And based on the malware, what they are trying to do, we try to figure out whether they're trying to communicate to a different network, they're trying to play with your registry keys, what notorious activity they are doing. So this would be the approach of the dynamic analysis. So in my talk, I will be covering a basic of static analysis. We won't go much into deep of static, but I'll focus more into the dynamic analysis and see what we can get from there and make a report of what that malware is actually doing. So this would be my approach for the talk.
Got it. So it sounds like you're kind of instrumenting the sandbox environment. That way you can monitor the behavior as much as the, looking at individual codes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I guess that must make it easier if unless you're really strong with assembly, I'm guessing that looking at the behavior is an easier way to find things.
That was my next, getting into static is like you have to be very strong with assembly. You need to get into the debugger and try to read the code and see what target location it's accessing. So that is something I am also trying to learn. So I will share my experiences with static analysis, and I have few examples to show that what we can infer from debugging the code and see how the malware was trying to act. So I will be covering that in a short stint, but mostly it will be focused on the dynamic analysis part.
Cool. Yeah, because it sounds like there's probably a lot you can learn just by observing the behavior.
Yeah, exactly. So
Right.
it will give you a lot of idea of how the person who has written the malware, the attacker who has written the malware is trying to do. So by that you get an approach of how the hackers are trying to get into your system by just observing the dynamic behavior of the malware and what it's trying to do.
Right. Right. Okay. And once you've kind of gone through the process, what I guess it would depend on the environment about what you do with the results, right?
Yeah, yeah. So in a typical scenario, we will try to uh, like the example I gave. If it's a very simple example that that the link downloaded an exe and it's trying to communicate to a remote host.
Mm-hmm.
So in a typical example, we will block that IP address on the firewall or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. So based on the behavior, we will take the follow-up actions to protect from it.
Right. Right.
And yeah, and one of the most like basic thing which we do is we try to remove that exe and check whether it is persistent or not. Like if you try to restart the system, it's still there or it gets deleted. Or is it creating a copies of itself and in different location and it's still persisting into the system for long. So yeah, these are the things which we'll try to get out of the dynamic analysis, and we'll put some recommendation steps on how to combat those things.
Okay. So as far as like, target audience for your talk, so even if people aren't assembly wizards, they should still come to your talk?
Yeah, sure. Because I am also not that expert in assembly, but yeah, I would give them leads on how I am trying to learn more into assembly and trying to do the static analysis part. But yeah, analyzing the dynamic part is something any person who is aware of how the system works, how the any malware is trying to work, how the basic OS works is fair enough to attend the talk.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing that talk, and I'll definitely look forward to seeing you at Source Boss again. You've been to a number of our events, so I think this is going to be your third, right?
Yeah, this is going to be my third event. And yeah, so Source conferences helped me through my masters, meeting people, learning a few things. So yeah, Source Boston has been a great in my part of the journey. So it will be love to be there again.
Great. Great. Awesome. So I'll see you on May 9th and 10th at Source Boston. And if anybody wants to continue this conversation or see Anurag's talk, you should definitely come to Source Boston and check it out.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.